Hi, my name is Aftab Saeed. It's not Saeed, it has been misspelled in the program leaflet in your hands. And I'm not clarifying this because of the Twitter joke that is going around these days. My name is Naveed, and I'm not going to take off my shirt. I'm just clarifying it because as soon as the LLF schedule was up, a friend of mine called me and told me to get this fixed immediately. Since I was enjoying the upgraded status, I asked her why, what's bothering her so much. So she said it's giving an impression that you may be a Shia, and Shias are going through so much already. The last thing they want is you on their side. Hello and welcome to the session titled The Making of Political Satire. Everyone knows it takes a lot of courage to be funny, especially when the political reality you have is a dark one. We are lucky to be with someone who has pushed the boundaries of satire in difficult times. She is a phenomenal publisher and editor of the Friday Times, winner of International Press Freedom Award, and some of you may remember her from her witty columns of imaginary conversations between two world-level leaders, Bush and Bush. Our remarkable woman that I also have, I'm also fortunate to call her a friend, Jugnu Mohsin. Hi Jugnu, how are you?
बस ठीक हूँ, फोन बंद कर ले। मूड बनाना है तुमने?
जी जी जरूर।
मेरी जब भी अली के साथ मुलाकात होती है, मैं इसको हमेशा कहती हूँ पहले मूड बनाओ फिर बात करेंगे। पहले ये मूड बनाएगा।
कैसे आप पसंद करेंगे?
तुम्हें पता? एक छोटी सी ये चीज गाता है, बड़ी खूबसूरत गाता है, और मैं इसके साथ हम करती हूँ, और फिर हम अपनी बातें शुरू करते हैं। He's going to produce my program also. We've done some other programs together. We've done lots of pilots, and we hang out occasionally. So he's a great friend and an inspiration. थोड़ा सा मूड बनाओ, please. शामिल फिराक 2-3 वर्सेस हैं, उसके बाद हम शुरू करेंगे अपना प्रोग्राम।
शामे फिराक कब ना आई और आके टल गई, शामे फिराक कब ना आई और आके टल गई, दिल था के फिर बह गया, दिल था के फिर बह गया, चांदी के फिर संभल गई, शामे फिराक कब ना आई और आके टल गई, दिल से तो हर मामला करके चले थे साफ, कहने में उनके सामने बात बदल बदल गई, शामे फिराक कब ना आई और आके टल गई।
वाह वाह। आपका भी मूड बन गया?
Achha, Jugnu, so let's start with the concept of political satire at its most basic level. What is satire?
Satire is speaking the truth to power. Satire is pushing the boundaries of criticism and getting those who are powerful, high and mighty to not take themselves too seriously, to laugh about things, to understand that criticism is well meant, and to give a lighter touch to politics, to the analysis of politics, to the commentary on current affairs. So satire is many, many things, but principally it is to knock down those who are all-powerful, who consider themselves infallible, who consider themselves great authorities, and to just hold up the mirror and say, we're all human, let's just take a breath, step back, and look at things in a humorous way, laugh at each other. That's the basic point.
So how far back in the history can we trace the examples of satire?
I think the history of satire is as old as civilization itself. People have noticed that there's graffiti in the caves, there's been, in prehistory also, there has been comments. Wherever you found encryptions which have been translated, there's been commentary, there's been jokes have been around forever and ever. So as long as human history goes back, I think the history of satire, humor goes back to that as well. And as far back as I think political organization goes back, as far back as government goes, you find that there are criticisms of it, and you find that there is so much in criticism that is sometimes humorous, the lighter touch. So it's a very old tradition in human history. It's a universal thing across cultures, across the world.
And what is our tradition of satire?
Our tradition of satire, I'm not aware of the pre-partition tradition, I haven't looked at that, but I think that post-Pakistan, there has been a lot of protest against authoritarianism, dictatorship, and much of that has also been funneled into jokes and funneled into columns that were written in the Urdu press, written in the English press. और जो लोग प्रोटेस्ट करते थे सड़कों पे और जो नारे लगाते थे, उनके अंदर भी सैटायर होता था. आपको तो याद है कि जिस किस्म के नारे अयूब खान के खिलाफ लगते थे, फिर भुट्टो साहब के बारे में लगते थे, फिर उसके बाद ज़ियाउल हक के ज़माने में. वो एक और सेशन होगा इंशाल्लाह कल, उसके अंदर ह्यूमर एज अ सबवर्सिव एलिमेंट इन सोसाइटी. तो उस तरह तो पाकिस्तान के बनने के बाद सैटायर हैज़ बीन वेरी मच पार्ट ऑफ द इंटेलेक्चुअल ट्रेडिशन इन दिस कंट्री.
You launched Friday Times in the 80s.
In 1989, yes.
89.
Yes.
So share with us the journey of Friday Times.
The Friday Times' journey is a bigger story. It's a comprehensive journey in politics and resistance, in truth-telling, in suffering, in vindication. But as far as the satire is concerned, that basically began on the back page of the Friday Times. Dear Diary, and I have to give credit where it's due. My husband, the editor of the Friday Times, Najam Sethi, it was his idea to start a column called Dear Diary, which was to do with Benazir Bhutto and her first stint as Prime Minister.
So, how was the experience, the feedback?
Well, it's always difficult for the powerful to take criticism in their stride, to understand that this is well meant, and it is not necessarily to demolish them. But it's only very important people about whom commentary like this is written. And I think she understood that. And Benazir, may she rest in peace, had a very tolerant attitude towards the press, had a tolerant and democratic attitude to criticism in the press. And she never, she never took it amiss. But I have to say that the substance for the column came to me as I went along. When I interacted with her, got to know her a little bit, didn't know her very well, but met her on many occasions, and noticed how she talked, how she walked, how she conducted herself, how she dealt with her advisors, how she dealt with government, etc. So that gave you a sort of a mood with which to write. And since I'm a mimic, I could hear her voice in my ear every time I wrote the column. And then when we met her on occasions, I would pick up nuggets from what she was saying. And then many of her friends and many of her people in government were friends. So इस तरह करके एक body of work जिसे कहते हैं वो बना. And I found her voice, and I used to write in that.
What really intrigues me is the way you get the stories.
कुछ तो stories ऐसी थी जो कि कभी-कभार उनके साथ मुलाकात में मिल जाती थी. And from there you could spin a lot of things. Maslan, एक दफा, this is in the early 90s, and she was trying to topple the first Nawaz Sharif government. She was going on a long march and all the rest of it. And my husband and I went to see her in Islamabad, because we were journalists, we were interested to see how this organization was going along the long march. एक दिन हम उनके इस्लामाबाद के घर में गए, मुझे याद है, और ये फिर मैंने कहानी बाद में कई तरीके से इस्तेमाल की. And I have to just tell you, everybody here, that that jokes are never only original. Some are original, but some are things that have been worked in different ways. And that's what the function of creative writing is about, because you get an idea, you get an inspiration, and you use it. And I also have to beg forgiveness to those who are friends, followers, admirers of the political leaders that I'm going to be talking about, because as I said, this is well meant. And it's not meant as a damning criticism. I have great affection and in fact a lot of respect for Benazir and for the other political leaders in society. So this is well meant, please don't take it amiss. तो हम उनके घर गए, तो मोहतरमा वहाँ तशरीफ फरमा थी, उनके बहुत से स्टॉलवर्ड्स उनके साथ पीछे खड़े थे. नजम और मैं कमरे में आए तो हमें कहने लगी, एक सोफे पे बैठी थी, सोफा खाली था, सारे स्टॉलवर्ड्स पीछे खड़े थे sort of हाथ बांध के. तो हमें कहने लगी, come and sit here, Najam, come and sit here, Jugnu, come and sit here, have some fruits, have some chocolates from the German ambassador, come and sit down. उस तरह करके वो बात अपनी और चलती रहती थी उनकी बात. She didn't allow interruptions until she wanted you to say something. तो फिर कहने लगी कि look at me, I want an appointment with the American ambassador. I want to go and tell him that Nawaz is not doing well at all. He needs to go. And I want to go and see him, but he won't give me the time of day. He won't give me an appointment. What am I to do? Najam, what do you think? सोच ही रहे थे, अभी तो खुद ही जवाब दे दिया. It all dates back to a very long time ago, to my first state visit to the United States when I went as first elected Prime Minister of a Muslim country, first elected woman Prime Minister of a Muslim country. So I went to the United States and we were there in DC and I was at the Grand Rahat or whatever, this great, the Four Seasons I think it was it the Four Seasons bash? Was it the Four Seasons? Yes. Sitting there, I'd had all these meetings, etc., and I was sitting there in my hotel, and then Happy Minwala, who was then my ambassador in DC, came to me and said, "Baby," I said, "What is it, Happy?" I'm a loud mouth, but not such a loud mouth. I can't. The mic, there it is. Can we have the graphic of BB at the back, please? USB lady. अच्छा, तो वो फिर कहती हैं कि happy. So he said, BB, just 1 minute. So she said, what is it, happy? She said, BB, the governor of Arkansas and his wife are standing in the lobby downstairs and they're great fans and admirers of yours. They just want 1 minute with you and a photo opportunity. Maybe it will take 2 seconds, 2 minutes. Happy. I'm first woman elected Prime Minister of a Muslim country, daughter of Prime Minister Saeed Bhutto, granddaughter of Prime Minister Sashanwas Bhutto, Prime Minister of Junagadh State, who is Governor Arkansas. To which Happy said, "Bibi, he's he and his wife, they're both in politics, they're young people, and he was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford." Happy, what do I care about Rhodes Scholar at Oxford? I was president of the Oxford Union. I was president of the Oxford Union, first elected Prime Minister, Lady Prime Minister of a Muslim country, daughter of Prime Minister Saeed granddaughter of Prime Minister. No, that's the social butterfly, that's not Bibi. Oh no, that's not BB either. So anyway, as it happened, BB did not have the time for the governor of Arkansas and his wife. And she came back to Pakistan, and so at the Long March in the early 90s, she was saying, "Can you believe it? Can you just believe it? The American ambassador doesn't have the time to see me, and it's all Happy's fault. Happy should have known that Governor Arkansas would become Bill Clinton, President of the United States of America." And Hillary would be First Lady. I mean, if I had met them then, Najam, let's get on. तो खैर इस दौरान अब आपको पता है, for all the women who are sitting in this audience, what multitaskers we have to be, us women. We have to run homes, we have to take care of the kids, we have to do all sorts of things. Career women as well, we have to run the husbands. So she was doing all of that at the same time. फिर उनका कोई खादिम था, his name was Aladino. He was a Sindhi. He would come in. She said, Aladino, आपने चादर dry cleaning में भेजे? आपने मेरी शातुन dry cleaning में भेजे हैं? अब वो साथ साथ ये भी चल रहा होता था. Can you remove the fruit plates, please? Yes, you can sit down. Jahangir, sit down. Yes. फिर इस तरह करके. And so, what do you think? तो इस तरह मवाद बहुत मिलता था in our conversations with her and meetings with her, and then one would spin it, you know, for all it was worth.
Okay, so it has been a long journey for Mohsin. He is quite lenient now towards the journalists striking against him. But how did you get away with Ittifaq Nama in his first tenure?
We didn't. We didn't at all get away with it. Mia Sahib didn't have a sense of humor back then. So we began writing the Ittifaqnama, and you know the odd thing is that I had a mole in Mia Sahib's then secretariat who was very, very close to him. अच्छा इसमें moles का बहुत हाथ होता है, बहुत function, because the moles leak stories to you and they tell you inside things that nobody else knows, right? And then of course they can't go on the record with it, so you can't use it as a story, so you just have to write about it. So we had a mole right there in Mia Sahib's secretariat, right at his right hand. He's now a very famous man, and I'm not going to take his name. And he would supply the material for the first few Ittifaqnamas. And I thought to myself, how am I going to write it? So Najam and I talked about it. How am I going to find his voice? Because satire, this is very important, finding the voice. And I used to think, I speak Punjabi, that's my first language. So I thought I'm going to think in Punjabi and write in English. And that's how the Ittifaqnama was born. So ran into Mia Sahib once somewhere in the early 90s when he was his first stint in power, and he said to me, "Peda jiha column hai, ki lod hai, ji pade likhe log hai ho, chhad." To which I sort of said, and nod, and I said, "Nahi ji, and seriously nahi lagde koi kisi ne, nahi ji, elite hastiyan ne." Anyway, and then, you know, we must have stepped the line, we must have crossed a red line, because in 1999, early one morning, very early one morning, 2:30 in the morning, you know, several armed men broke into our home, beat up Najam and myself, arrested Najam, took him away. We discovered that, you know, he'd been taken off by some intelligence agency and the Punjab police. Anyway, he was in prison for a month after that. And I waged a battle to get him out because, you know, the freedom of the press had been violated, our home had been violated, etc. So it was clear that the government was not happy with what the Friday Times was doing and what the editor and I were doing. Anyway, so I waged this relentless battle to free my husband and to claim that, you know, the freedom of the speech of the press was a sacred thing that had to be fought for, right? So then I heard again this mole who was by then underground in Mia Sahib's secretariat. He said to me that he said to the attorney, the late Attorney General Chaudhry Farooq, his name was, he said, "Badi galti ho gayi. Chaudhry sahab asa galat bande nu arrest kita. करना चाहिए सी सेठी की कुड़ी सेठी बेचारा भी 2 दिन सुख का साह ले लेंदा ते शायद ऐसे बिना ते मेरी सेठी नाल सुलह भी हो जाती है." So that's what happened, and then when Najam came out of prison, etc., then Mia Sahib, of course, was ousted in Jugnu Sharif school, and then he went into exile in Saudi Arabia. 4 or 5 years, 4 years later, when he came to London, after 4 or 5 years of exile in Saudi Arabia. We happened to be in London at the same time. And he sent us a message through his son, his younger son Hassan, who lives in London, to say that we should meet. And Najam and I discussed this, and we thought, yes, we should meet because we're journalists, and there are no permanent enemies in journalism. Just as there aren't any, and Bibi, God bless her, used to say, there are no permanent enemies in siyasat, there are no permanent enemies in sahafat, there are no permanent friends either in siyasat or sahafat. So Najam and I met Mia Sahab and Begum Sahiba, and we talked about things, etc. And I think a lot of the air was cleared at that time. And since then, there has been no problem in terms of what you've written or what you've said, etc. I think he said at that time, he said, "Tusi yo column aje likhte pe ho?" I said, "Ji Mia Sahab, wo vade lokan de bare ch likhiya janda hai, is qisam da column. Bibi ne kadi narazgi da izhar nahi kita, te tuhanu bhi nahi karna chahiye, tusi leader ho." He said, "Chalo theek." And that's been that. Mercifully, fingers crossed, he's never raised an objection since then.
Okay, we'll talk about 99 later. In 97, you started writing House Act.
Yes.
So, I have two questions.
1996, I started writing House Act.
Okay, in 96.
That's it.
One, what was the response? Of course, the question is the troll a new phenomena or they existed back then as well?
No, there were no trolls at that time. There was just the one troll at that time. But I hoped that Imran would have a sense of humor about it. And he seemed to have in the beginning. And then I have to acknowledge here, and I'm putting together a collection of house acts by In the Dim. These have been written by myself in collaboration with my very, very dear friend and muse, whose name is Seema Iftikhar. I hope she's here. She was supposed to be on stage with me. Are you here? So Seema and I have written this collection since 1996 together, and we're now going to publish it under both our names, and this is her first publication. And she has been a source of great amusement, great inspiration. She has a wonderful sense of humor, and she knows Imran very well.
The other question was, House Act was a diary of In the Dim. How did you figure it out in 96?
यार अली तुमने मरना मुझे ना साथ मार देना तो Anyway, it was pretty obvious, even back then. But I remember a time when, this is 1997. We'd been writing it for about 6 or 8 months, and Princess Diana came to Lahore, and Imran and Jemima invited Najam and me to dinner to their house, which was very gracious of them. We went. As we walked into the house, he said to me, "Yaar dekho meri baat suno. ये मैंने तुम्हें बुलाया इसलिए कि ये तुम खत्म कर दो ये हाउस एक्ट." तो मैंने कहा वो तो देखी जाएगी, पहले प्रिंसेस डायना से तो मिलाओ ना. So he introduced her to me and I met her, and this is just a few months before she died. And she'd come to Lahore, in actual fact, to check out Dr. Hasnat Khan's family, because she was involved with him at the time, the Pakistani heart surgeon. And she was very interested in Islam, converting to Islam. She was interested in, maybe living some of the life that Jemima and Imran had at that time. She was a very dissatisfied soul. She was searching. And she was very nice to talk to, but, you pick up the voices, and there were some fairy lights in the house, choti si wo mirchein lagi, celebratory lights lagi hoti hain. So she and I were standing under a tree with some fairy lights. So I said, how nice that looks and how nice it is to see you here in Lahore. So she said, "Yeah, the fairy lights, aren't they lovely?" I said, "Yes, they're so lovely." She said, "Do you know what? My room's out there. And the fairy lights, I think there's some interference with my room with the fairy lights. Because I drew a bath today, just before dinner. And I thought, Diana, it'd be so nice to have a warm bath, although it is March. And I drew up the bath, and thank goodness, before I immersed the whole of myself in it, I just touched the water, and it was a little electric charge in the water. Oh dear, there's an electric charge in the water. Right, and I drew back, and I thought, oh goodness, I can't have a bath in this. I can't immerse myself in this water. Can you imagine the headline of Daily Mail? Lady Diana, Princess Diana, electrocuted in Imran Khan's bathroom. So, you know, I got a flavour of Lady Diana and Imran and Jemima together, and they were very sweet together in those days. And continued to write in the dim with Seema's help, of course. And we have the most fantastic time writing it, I have to tell you. We have lunch and dinner together, and for hours we talk about it. Then she gets fed up, and she says to me, "Hon mere kolo hor nahi honda, main challi aa kar." And then I take a few things from here and there and piece it together and everything. And every time I say to her, it's Wednesday, we have to write everything, she says, please, let's stop. But we've carried on, and I hope that soon we will do other things as well.
Then comes 99, mashallah. How difficult it is to write imaginary conversations between Bush, which is okay, and Bush, who is the chief of army staff.
Well, I have to tell you that he was also very tolerant. Although, you know, we didn't really stick it in many ways, because in the beginning he was trying to follow his 7-point agenda, etc., which was a progressive agenda, etc. So one was giving him a little bit of time, but one was, you know, critical of the fact that he was rolling over, playing dead sometimes in the matter of Bush things. And once again, I had a mole right in there who would give me information about him. And one day, General Musharraf called me in the office. I was sitting in the office and he called the office. And I used to have an operator called Saeed. And Saeed was from, you know, sort of the inner city of Lahore. And he rang me up, and I picked up the phone in my office and said, "Baby?" I said, "Haan Saeed." "Mera khayal hai Musharraf ka phone hai tade vaste." I said, "Ki?" "Aho ji, mera khayal hai Musharraf ka phone hai tade vaste." "Musharraf hai? Janta ho kise Musharraf?" Main kya, "Oi Musharraf hona hai, bol kya?" "Aho ji, mera khayal hai honda hi." Anyway, I picked up the phone, it was from the presidency, and the man just put me through to him, and there he was on the phone. "Hello, how are you? Alright? Alright? Yes, alright." I said, "Ji, thank you so much, all well. Khairiyat se phone kiya aapne?" "You know this thing you've written about, this private conversation I had with the general, the CENTCOM general, you know? I had this private conversation with the CENTCOM general. How did you hear about it?" I said, "General Saab, the thing is that, you know, journalists, good journalists have sources everywhere, etc." Yes, I just want to know who gave it to you. What's the name? What's the name?" I said, "General Saab, a good journalist, Freudian slip, a good journalist never reveals her sources." Silence for just a split second.
In many cases, it's one and the same thing now, journalist and journalist.
Sometimes. But silence for a second, and then to his credit, he said, alright, yes, understand, understood. All well? How's Najib? I said, fine, thank you. Okay, Khuda. That was my sort of one encounter with him, in which he asked who tells you this and who's given you this information. But other than that, you know, there was not much commentary from his side on that. But the mole kept feeding us, and I kept running the thing until, of course, he departed.
Can you read an excerpt from either Mohsin Bush or Aftab?
I'll read a short, well, it's not very short, but I'll read it anyway. And again, this is voices of several people. And this is a house ad from 1998, when, you know, he was still struggling to establish his political career. And he and Jemima would be visited by sort of smart English people every now and then.
So it says, since I'm out of work these days, Jem said I might as well go to the airport and pick up this friend of her brother's, William Twit, who's coming to spend a few days with us. So I went off and I approached the first Gora who came out of international arrivals. Are you the Right Honourable William Twit? I asked. Ta-da! Typical absent-minded Gora, I thought. I took his bag and showed him into the car. On the way home, he said,
It is supposed to be hot here. Why is it so cold? I'm here for the weather, which is supposed to be hot. Why is it not?
I said, don't worry, it'll get hot before you know it.
Look, they promised me at Thomas Cook holidays that it'd be the most memorable time of my life. And because it better be, because I'll spend 1,500 quid I have on this trip. It better be good. I've done it, okay?
Typical absent-minded Gora, yaar. Then we ran into this jaloos of traders refusing to pay GST. Oh, gaadi band ho gayi.
What are they going on about? What are they going on about, these people?
Oh, them, they don't want to pay tax.
Bloody right. Nobody should pay tax. I don't pay tax. Why should I pay tax? What the government ever done for me that I should pay tax? Why should I pay tax? Bloody cheek, asking everybody to pay tax. And so on it went, and said, look at me. What do? I work for a living. I'm a plumber. I go in, I fix the taps, and there's this greedy car. She's 87 years old, and she won't pay me what I need. I said, I want 250 quid for 5 minutes. She said, 250 quid for 5 minutes? I said, yeah, that's right. She won't pay me. So I said, bloody start off, you cat. So I take her plumbing thing, and I hit her across the head with it, and she faints, right? And then the police come and say, you're going off to jail. And I said, well, I'm going off to jail. I'm not going to jail. When I got out of jail, I went to the pub and this doctor says to me, listen, mate, you've got to pay tax. And I said, well, I'm going to pay tax. He said, taxes run hospitals. So I said, taxes run hospitals? What have hospitals ever done for me? Why should I pay tax? Anyway,
I thought, yaar, pagal Gora hai, isko leke ghar to chale.
So as they were going out of the departure and got into the car, driving into the house, he says, so look, what I did was, I took my savings out of my piggy bank and I said, let's go and have a holiday in a warm, nice place. India, yeah. This is India, isn't it?
Bloody Twit, yeah. So I'm ghar pahuncha to वहाँ Jemima khadi hai and Jemima says,
this isn't William. Where's William?
अच्छा, एक और सवाल और वो ये कि अल्ताफ हुसैन की डायरी क्यों नहीं?
बस वही है कि we have torn our bum. India tore the bum, so we had to tear a bum. It is to be seen which is the bigger bum. And put earth, mitti pav.
Jugnu?
There is black in lentil. Dal mein kala hai. I am eating bushes since 1999. Dhakke ka. And we have done so many finishes for this dark age to settle. Finishes, khatam karwaye.
Jugnu, we have another question.
What you find out, is your mole the same as Najm's chidiya?
Well, there is a difference of gender between mole and chidiya, and there's a difference of species as well. No, my moles are not the same as Najm's chidiya. I'd like to know who Najm's chidiya is.
Has Imran ever objected to the dim title?
हाँ ये पागल सी मीनो पजल औरतें लिखती हैं.
Have you ever spoken to your wife?
नहीं, उस दिन जो वो लेडी डायर का खाना था उसी दिन उसने मुझे कहा, उसके बाद तो इस मौजू पे बात नहीं हुई.
जी
बकवास है, वैसे भी बकवास है. क्या यार बकवास.
Faiza.
Hello.
Hello.
So I wanted to ask, I mean, of course, I'm sure everyone here is aware of the fact that your sister is Mohsin, who writes Diary of a Social Butterfly and is also, the other sort of hilarious person to come out of our. So I wanted to ask, what's up with your parents? I mean, how did this happen? How were you raised? So that's my first question. I'm sorry, I'm going to be greedy and ask two. My second one is that I, as you may know, live in India these days, and certainly in comparison to Pakistan and in comparison to TFT, which I used to work at, it's a singularly humorless place. So what I wanted to ask was that, is satire in Pakistan also just a function of helplessness? Is satire what you do when you can't actually improve things? You're just is it laughter in the dark, actually?
Very valid question, Faiza, and I think to some extent, yes, it is. You resort to two things when you're helpless. You laugh or you cry. And satire, I think, as you very rightly said, is trying to laugh about tragedies that befall us and the quality of leadership that we're afflicted with. So yes, and when you're helpless, you also dream up conspiracies because you can't come to terms with your helplessness. Satire at least is an honest response to helplessness, but spinning conspiracy theories is a dishonest response to helplessness. And sadly, it has to be said that across the board in Pakistan, more and more people are victim to the conspiracy theory.
Hi.
And my parents are normal, regular people. My mother has a talent for mimicry, and I think that's where we get it from.
Okay, we just have time for one more question. Sabah.
Hi, I wanted to ask, when you were writing the Thotnama for many years, Abbaji was a very strong voice in it.
Sorry, can you come again? What did you say?
Abbaji was a very strong voice in the Thotnama,
Yeah.
And obviously, after he died, did you feel that there was a sort of a void to be filled there? Because I remember at one point, there was, half of the column used to be Abbaji said this and Abbaji did this, and it was such, and how did you fill that void? And obviously the column has kept going since then. Did you replace it with another character, or did you manage to keep it going even without Abbaji's very strong presence there?
And I think I managed to keep it going for one reason, because I think Mian Nawaz Sharif has made the transition and he's probably become Abbaji himself. And then there are other people in it. There's Shubhasa, there's your Papi, and there are others. So I think that yes, he was a very strong presence in the Fatnama, but I think Mian Sahib has come into his own since then.
Okay, this brings the session to an end.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you so
I am
much.
deeply impressed, and I wish you best of luck. Your program will be the most watched program on all the televisions.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much.
Keep on. You are going to give a new spirit, a new humor, a new program to the people of Pakistan. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We still have time for more questions.
Can you mimic Asma?
No. Absolutely not. She's, I can't do her. I don't have her voice. And A, and B, she's a very, very dear friend. And she's not a politician, you see. I do mostly politicians. People who seek your vote and who need to be held accountable by you. So let's keep it to that.
Any more questions? Yeah,
I'd love to do Najam if I can, if I could. He's sitting here right in front of me.
I have a question here.
I can't. I mean, for instance, I won't take the name again. I will not take the name, but there's a very famous gentleman who's here in the Literary Festival as well. He's a leading light of many, many things. And he happened to be staying at our friend Lucy and Jilo's house last year when he came to visit Pakistan. So Lucy had invited us to dinner. We arrived at their home. As we were at the front door, the bijli went, obviously, load shedding. So Najam banged on the door, somebody opened the door. So a very modest sort of person opened the door. So he walked in. Kithe ne Lucy bibi, kithe ne Jilo sahab? Ai koi gall hai ki na koi generator, na kuch, na batti baldi hui. Ki gall hai yaar? Tenu data se. And so turned around to this gentleman and said, "Oh, hello, how are you? I'm so sorry." I recognized him, but he didn't. And he presumed that he was a servant opening the door. And he does many things like this. He's absent-minded in the extreme.
So
I'll be polite and I'll stay there.
I want to ask a question from here on your other side. On this side? Yeah. You know, in my opinion, the standards that have been set by politicians are almost the same for the last few decades. Would you like to see them, you know, in a different way? We'd like to see a politician with a better standard that would challenge the people who are writing satire.
I'm sorry, you just lost that. In the beginning, can you just rewind?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that the standards that our politicians are presenting to the people who are writing satire in Pakistan are almost quite the same for quite some decades. You don't see them, you know, changing their character in a way that is challenging for people who are writing satire in Pakistan. So almost similar kind of attributes that they display that are quite predictable now, you know, irrespective of the party they represent. Would you like to see a better standard raised by these politicians to challenge those who are writing satire in Pakistan? So what is a kind of an ideal politician for you which would challenge you to write something different?
I mean, I think that if it was a sort of somebody very regular, boring, fantastic, accountable, just, judicious, great, except we don't have nothing to write about. So I'd rather these guys. So we can carry on writing.
I have a question here.
Sorry? No, never wrote Begum Bhutto's diary.
Because I remember there was something about Murtaza Bhutto once.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I remember that. I said to it, yes. Mir and Mummy.
Yes, Mir and Mummy. He wrote to her that she grew another foot.
Yes.
She sent him 3 swords.
Yes. I remember that. Thank you for recording that. Yes.
Ma'am, I have a question here.
Yes?
Here.
Up here.
Where?
Acha.
My question is that in the program which is based on political satire, it would be an injustice not to mention George Orwell, who wrote beautiful political satire on totalitarian regimes. His 1984 and Animal Farm is mentioned here. What I have seen here in Pakistani political satire is that it is most of the times oriented against personalities and not against ideas. So is there any suggestion to change this trend from personalities oriented satire to the satire which is oriented against ideas?
Well, the satire against ideas you find on the streets and roads of Pakistan when people come out to protest. Public protest and the slogans that people shout at public meetings, in Jalsa, Julus, etc. This is satire of a high order, of a high class, and it is often calling certain ideas into question. अब आपने तो देखा है कि जो कई जुलूसों में हम लोग इकट्ठे जब निकलते थे, जब ख़वातीन महाज़े अमल के जुलूस पे हम निकलते थे, जो हम जुलूस नारे लगाते थे, और वो जो वहाँ पुलिसमैन खड़े होते थे, जो उनकी हमारे साथ एक होती थी केमिस्ट्री होती थी, रैपो होता था, उसके अंदर भी बड़ी चीज़ें होती थी. हम नारे लगाते थे ज़ियाउल हक के कवानीन के ख़िलाफ़, हुदूद ऑर्डिनेंसेस के ख़िलाफ़. वो कहते थे ओ फिर वही 40-12 औरतां आ गई ने, हर चौथे महीने वही 40-12 औरतां आ जांदियां ने, वो आई हुई ने अज. वो भी होता था साथ. और फिर जो जब इलेक्शंस होती हैं, जब लोग किसी और काम के लिए निकलते हैं, वो आपको याद होगा ये लॉयर्स मूवमेंट के ज़माने के स्लोगन्स. फिर उससे पहले जब बेनज़ीर भुट्टो पहली दफ़ा 86 में आई पाकिस्तान, तो उस वक्त वो अमेरिका के साथ बना के आए. बड़ी उन्होंने कोशिश करके एक अपना अच्छा प्रो वेस्ट इमेज फ्रॉम भुट्टोज लेफ्टिज्म ठीक करके आई. और उनके जुलूस के अंदर लोग लगा अमेरिका का जो यार है गद्दार है, गद्दार. तो बीबी ने अपनी एक्सक्यूज मी ट्रक पे मुड़ के कहा व्हाट वाज दैट. और उनको जब बताया गया कि ये नारा लग रहा है, there will be no more these stupid slogans. तो इन चीज़ों में आइडियोलॉजीज़ के बारे में बात, ये ऑब्वियसली एक आयाम हो जाती है कि ये दिस इज criticism of a certain mood in a country, of a certain ideology. जहाँ आपस में जब PMLN और तहरीक इंसाफ के आपस में जब थे आमने सामने, इस इलेक्शन के दौरान मैंने देखा जब बात हो रही, वो स्लोगन लगा रहे होते थे नवाज शरीफ के खिलाफ और PMLN के खिलाफ, और दूसरी तरफ पासे में कहने लगी सन दूसरी तरफ PTI वाले लगे होते थे चाड़गी बुढ़ी रह रे अल्लाह आए वे बल्ला आए वे बल्ला, इस किस्म की बात. PMLN वालों के खिलाफ वो नारे लगा रहे होते थे. तो इस तरह ये दिस इज सैटायर ऑफ अ हाई ऑर्डर, जो कि लोग आइडियोलॉजीज के खिलाफ वगैरह लगाते. हम लोग जब तालिबान प्रोटेस्ट करते थे, अब तो खैर कोई एक जुलूस निकाल नहीं सकता तालिबान के खिलाफ, लेकिन एक दो जुलूस जो हमने निकाले तालिबान के खिलाफ, उसमें भी तालिबान जालिमान उसी तुम्हें याद, उस किस्म के भी स्लोगन्स लोग आइडियोलॉजी के खिलाफ ही तो लगाते हैं.
Do you think Bilawal will be the next subject for your satire?
Where's that question coming from? I need to see my inquisitor. Where's it coming from? ये ऊपर वाली बत्ती बंद कर दें please. Is Bilawal a subject for a new column? Is that what you said? I hope so. Eventually, I hope so. I'm listening to his voice. I must say he's a very brave young man, and he's saying many of the things that many older politicians and more experienced politicians ought to be saying also. But he's a very, very brave young man, and I wish him safety, security, and maturity.
This brings the session to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for coming.